to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, or whenever you happen to be listening, because after all, it's your podcast. Now, joining me today is a man who is on a quest. He's on a quest to take big boxes. He's in a quest to fill them with stuff. He's in a quest to make sure that those big boxes get across the other side of the world into the hands of backers from near and far, and especially those who have been involved in some kind of Kickstarter. It is the magnificent, the wonderful Mr. Nigel Matthews from Gamesquest. So hello, Nigel.
Hey Richard, how you doing?
I'm very, very good.
What a lovely introduction.
Well, there you go.
Half your audience is going, yeah, right.
And the rest of them
Where's my box?
off.
Who got my box?
Come on. Let's not bring work into this. You're not here to discuss. You're not here to talk about your business. This isn't any kind of shameless plug.
You just introduced me as somebody who wants to get a quest. Anyway, I'll behave. I'll say the thing.
No, you won't. The reason that we're doing this is because, over the last couple of years, because it has almost been a couple of years now, we've had a lot of creators, we've had a lot of developers, we've had other content creators, we've had artists, we've had authors, we've had different people doing creative stuff. But what basically happens when these people create something for you and they end up wanting to get it delivered to you? And Gamesquest over the last couple of years has stepped up to the plate and said, hey, guys, we can do this for you. So we decided after, all of the businesses that we've spoken to, and we had Peter Blanken on recently who, he's used Gamesquest now, he's used Gamesquest in the past. We've had a lot of other businesses as well using them. We thought it was time to ask Nigel on to have a chat, and as always, to tell us a little bit about himself, a little bit about Gamesquest, and what's going to happen in the future of the business. So again, listen, thank you very, very much for kind of coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. As we say, the reason that we do this is quite simply there's not enough podcasts out there about board games. And as I say, the second reason that we're doing this is because I sent a little email into Gamesquest and said, would somebody like to come on the show? And Nigel went, I'll do it. and he
it was more a case of, you're doing it. What then?
That's it. I think that's the only reason they got you to do it is because you hadn't listened to the show before. So he said he doesn't know what he's getting himself into.
I did listen to the show, and you remind me of one of my interviewing heroes, which was of course Michael Parkinson. So the fact, because you sounded like Michael Parkinson, I decided I was going to come on board.
Well, that's very, very much appreciated, good sir. It's a delight to have you on. Let's stare back a little bit into the past, because as we say, we like to have a little look at your history. So we're going to have a little stare back into the past before we pick and pack the present before shipping it off to the future.
That's a great pun. I love the pun. You are Mr. Pun, aren't you?
And Mr. Segue. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about your history? I mean, how you got into kind of like the tabletop hobby yourself?
Being of a slightly older generation now, slightly different. Like most people, I didn't really get into board games. It was very much role playing that I first kind of got into, and that was with good old Steve Jackson. Before he did GURPS, he did something called Into the Labyrinth. Me and my friends, we all started doing Into Labyrinth, and then at the age of 14, I got into play-by-mail games. So that was kind of really then that for the next kind of maybe decade, maybe a bit less than that, but certainly for the next good few years was getting into play-by-mail games, where I obviously ended up designing and running my own play-by-mail games as well. So that was kind of really how I really kind of started into gaming. I did some board gaming, but it wasn't the hobby was nowhere near the size and diversity that it is now. So really, kind of a good game of Monopoly really was probably probably my length of my board gaming criteria there. So really, it was all about role playing, and then even to the point where I ended up doing and designing free formatted murder mystery games and running those at the likes of Games Day and Reading festivals and that sort of stuff as well. So really, all really stemmed from, that's how I really kind of got into it. So board gaming came very, very much later. So
let's I'm gonna kind of take it back a bit, because you said play by mail, and people are going to be like sitting there going, "Well, how do you do that? How does that work? To take it, you know, it's obviously a distance thing. So somebody emails you over, kind of like what they're going to do, and you kind of email back, and it's like, no. Back in the day, where this was naught but fields and trees, what they used to do, and when the post office used to deliver more than just like takeaways and offers of double glazing and the occasional bill, people used to, and you correct me if I'm wrong, people used to run campaigns, and they used to people used to kind of get involved, and what would happen is they would write down what they were wanting to do or give instructions. They would stick it in a letter, stick it in an envelope, stick a stamp on it, stick it to an address. It'd get opened by somebody at the other end who would gaze upon the instructions, and then you would issue kind of fresh orders. So this is like long term kind of game.
It was. The anticipation of waiting for your turn to arrive in a post was sometimes unbearable, depending obviously what was going to happen, and the real good companies would, your turn would be arriving within 10 days, for example, so that was, in its basic format, if you could think of a game of chess where both players have got a board in front of them, and one player says, bishop to this and knight to 4 and pawn to here, and then you make the moves on your board and send back what your move was. That would be in its very, very, very simplest format from that side of things as well. But yeah, and it was a boom industry, particularly in the probably mid 80s to early 90s. It was a big hobby. There was we had conventions, and there was a few thousand people would come to these conventions. So it was a big hobby.
Did you make any money out of it? Was it something that you kind of did as a hobby? Is it like kind of like content creation nowadays, where there was a lot of people doing it, but there was a lot of people just not making any money, but doing it for kind of like the love of the job or the love of the hobby?
Oh, totally. I mean, even to these, same as these days, I think there's a lot of people who will be involved in this industry as a cottage industry, work from home and for the love of it. So, no, not really, and I don't think anybody really did. Really, there's two types of game. There's a hand moderated game and a computer moderated game. So basically, everybody had to the computer moderated games, everybody had to get their orders in by a certain time, and you had a certain amount of types of orders you can do, and all the orders get crunched into the computer work it out, and then send every order, all the orders back. And that was the only way you could possibly make money, is if you had a really good computer moderated game that was highly addictive, and you could do it. But then PC gaming then came in, and that really kind of, why would you spend £2 or £3 to do that when you could hop online and play with your mates online? So it was all the end of it. So no, I don't think anybody made any serious money out of it, but yeah.
Did you ever have folk, you said conventions, did you ever have folk kind of like dressing up for them? Was there any, was cosplay a thing in the 80s, or did everybody kind of like just turn up and kind of like, all right, I'm Elvin the Destroyer, all right, I'm Eldrick the Bard, how are you, kind of thing?
Yeah, that was...
Or did anybody kind of dress up with big swords and stuff like that? No,
not that I remember. No, I cannot remember. I don't think you needed to, because of course you always had a visualization of what that person that you were writing to, because there's a couple of really good examples that we can give. I remember when I was first starting to play, and and I was playing this game called the Keys of Bled, I think it was, and Keys of Bled, and the Bled was this word, and my tribe ran into this other tribe, and I started corresponding with this lady called Marion, and as a 14-year-old boy, your kind of imagination runs a bit riot, doesn't it? You know, I wonder if she's my age.
Did you have that Dreamweaver song kind of going through your head? She's a dream.
Well, I certainly had dreams. I wouldn't say what kind of dreams they were, but they were definitely dreams. I was 14, for God's sake. Anyway, so I managed eventually, arranged to call Marion at a certain time. And back in my day, I didn't have a phone at home. I had to go up the phone box. Do you know what I mean? So it was an adventure just to get up that phone box and finally going to speak to Marion. So, the excitement was, wow, the anticipation. It turns out she was 64 and retired. But we still remain great friends. End of the dream. But
did you do a lovely breakfast?
I don't know. I never will. Shush! I told you not to say that. Anyway, but equally, a guy. I met another guy. Sounds positive. I met a friend of mine called Dave, and through another game called Word of Vengeance, and where our tribes had to end up in a big battle together, and we became good friends, and now 35 years later, he is still one of my best friends and was my best man at my wedding. So I suppose I refer back to, you didn't need to dress up because you had in a mind what people potentially looked like, because you never really saw these people. So you didn't really dress up. You came as you are because nobody would know what you were going to look like anyway. But yeah, it was a big hobby. There was the London pub meet first of every month was, it was good. 50 to 100 people used to come to the London pub meet, and the conventions were big as well. So, and it's still a hobby, but it's played by email now. If you kind of have a look at Flying Buffalo with Rick Loomis, they're still the last probably great exponents of the hobby from that perspective as well. So,
I mean, were you well known? I mean, were you kind of almost like semi-famous between the people that used to play your games?
Yes, I suppose I was a little bit in the terms of I was a bit of a character, and I designed a game called Infinite Adventures, which was a hand-moderated role-playing game, but it didn't. Well, let's put it this way: I couldn't get my head round, because I used to be a role player. I couldn't get my head round it. Like, you had games out there that were like sort of D&D games and that sort of stuff as well, and you go, "Well, hold on a minute. I'm writing my turn in, and seriously, this person is actually rolling dice at the other end of the post. Nah, that's not happening." So the Infinite Adventures one that I designed was free formatted. You had certain stats, of course, you had health and that sort of stuff as well. But it was all down to imagination. It was down to the imagination of the person who was writing the turns in, and down to my imagination in terms of what that right back. And I created this die line map which would fade. You put under the sun and it would fade, and people loved it. And and I used to sit on different panels, at all these conventions and stuff. I was always invited onto the panels because I was probably quite opinionated at the time. So I wouldn't say I was famous, but I was reasonably well known, I suppose. I was a bit of a character, and it was all right. It was great fun. So,
how long does it take to make a campaign up? I mean, when you're catering for, how on average did you have a fair number of people kind of on any campaign at one time?
No, I didn't have any campaigns. It was an open-ended. It was like a sandbox. So literally, you were in this world. You got put in a situation. You got your characters, and then you had multiple choices from rumors or things, or you heard certain stuff. You could play high fantasy. You could play low fantasy. There was wars going on. So it was an open-ended sandbox of a world. I didn't have a specific campaign, and it was down to people outside of that game to liaise with other people, either by writing to meet up and send their turns at the same time, and that they would need to coordinate themselves when they would send their turns in as to where they want to work together to achieve something. So there were other games out there, not as good, of course, but now there were other games out there that you could go on a certain campaign. So, but yeah, so and it was interesting because Mystery and Adventure Games, which are a games company, my friend Colin was running a game called Crisis. And that was all computer moderated, and that was kind of well known as well. So, and eventually I ended up designing and running a computer moderated football game, which was which I suppose I thought was the only way that it could possibly make any sort of money, in that sort of hobby. But it didn't happen.
When you're talking computer moderated, are you talking BBC Micro type computing type thing? I mean, were they? Did you go in and say, okay, this is what this person's doing? Did you have to program it up? Did you, how did that kind of work? Because you're saying computer moderated. Was there always somebody behind it kind of making up all the different kind of choices and abilities and stuff like that?
The computer program was generated, whether it's on a BBC or any computer at the time, and like any program, you could Crisis, for example, everybody controlled a country. You could build missiles, you could launch missiles, you could move land troops, you attack each other. It was like a nuclear version, a nuclear war Risk, really, in that sense. Everybody had to send their orders at the same time, and then it would crunch out the numbers. So you can launch 60 ICBMs, and then if the person had defended them, so it's just a mishmash, all sorts of different types of games that, and I suppose similar to what it is with the board game market now is that there was a lot of diverse games. If you could think of anything, there was a sort of game out there for you. So for certain. So, but yeah.
So, I mean, you said that naturally with the onset of kind of like PC gaming, that the play-by-mail kind of gaming stuff kind of finished. So,
I played Civilization. Let's face it. Who didn't turn to the dark side after playing Civilization when it first came out, and was up to the wee hours, 4 o'clock in the morning, going to work bleary-eyed, couldn't wait to get up there again. So yeah, I kind of naturally moved away eventually to PC gaming. So because just loved the game. So.
I mean, what I remember about Civilization or playing Civilization was having to wait between the turns while the computer kind of whirred away in the background, and it was fine at the very, very beginning. But I remember actually having Civilization on the PlayStation 1, and I remember at the point where you were just about to, you dominated the world. Yeah. You had to pretty much go away, make yourself a cup of tea, and boil the kettle, because it just took like 5 minutes to compute the entire move. And
totally. It was. I mean, we still remember fondly when I first got my first ever computer game, which was a ZX81, and then people got the Spectrum, and sitting there, and people look at you dumb now who didn't know those days of putting the blinking tape recorder on and waiting and begging and hoping and praying to the gods of tape recorders that it would load after 5 minutes. Go on, load, go on. And punch in the air when it loaded because you knew you were set there for the next kind of like hour.
It was manic minor for me. I remember I'll tell an exact story. I had a tape recorder where and you got them from Dixon's at the time. Yep. And this one had a little tape recorder with a little volume control, and we ended up actually getting and this was back in the day where Rice Krispies used to give away toys, but for a while they gave away sticker sets. So I remember taking a sticker and actually having to put it across where the volume was on Manic Miner, because Manic Miner took about 5 minutes to load, but it only ever messed up at the very, very end. So what would happen, it'd get to the very, very end, and if it didn't load, it would just reset. And you'd be sitting there with a kind of a screen. But in all fairness, I played, what was I playing the other day? I went to boot up an old Lego game that I hadn't played with my son for about 3 months, and I must have had to wait about an hour and a half for the flipping thing to update. So it's funny how things kind of go around. He's like, "That, shall we play? What do you want to play, son? Can we play Lego Batman 3? Yeah, sure, let's just put it on the PlayStation 4. Please wait while we update the thing." And it was going through like about 3 different updates. It's like,
the old update,
97 minutes, absolutely fantastic. How do you go from being play-by-mail Nigel to being man on a quest selling cardboard to people willing to give you money for it? How I mean, and then onto the fulfillment. What's the kind of, where's the bridge between you posting out envelopes and posting out boxes?
Well, after the dark years of being in the wilderness of PC games and console gaming and all the rest of that, which was many years, and kids and stuff to come along as well. It really all started way before. Don't forget, I also have a very large and successful retail business, and that came first, and that came from the good old days of when eBay first launched. From that side of things as well, and having a bit of a hobby and a very addictive hobby. My brother started, actually. I blame my brother Paul. He basically started doing this degree, and he bought a psychology book. I remember it well, because a year later, I don't remember him buying it. I remember him selling it, and because he said, I bought this psychology book for 20 quid a year ago. He said, I've done my course, I don't need it. I just sold it on eBay for like 30 quid. He said, he said, so I started to sell some other bits. I went, oh, right, okay. I thought, I'll have a go at that. And I had a series of books called The Riverboat by an author called Philip Joseph Farmer. And I just so happened that I'd had all 5 books in the series I'd read. And I thought, will I read them again? I thought, yeah, I did enjoy them. They were brilliant. But I thought, I probably won't read them again. I'll check them on eBay for 99p, see where I get, you know. And I don't know if anybody's ever sold stuff on eBay, but when you first, there was never fixed pricing. It was always auction. You know, when it first started, it was everything was auction. And when you list something that, you know, 99p was in red, it was always red. But when you got a bid, Richard, it would go green. Okay, and that feeling of it going green is addictive. All right, it is addictive, particularly when that bid went from 99p for those 5 books to like nearly 40 quid, right? And I thought, being a salesman, I like that. I'll have a bit of that. I'm off.
Rubbing your legs.
What else can I sell? What else can I raid from my library that I won't read again? And then that burned up quickly. I got the bug, and then we'll go car boot selling, and then I'll find a stand with science fiction, fantasy books, and like then I started learning all about first editions and that sort of stuff, and then Emma, my wife, got, this is fun. Can I come with you? I like going car boot selling. Let's go car boot selling. And she would also buy some stuff as well. And then it kind of, it just went from there. And that psychology of green is just terrific. And it opened up the world because people from all around the world wanted to buy their stuff from me. And you know, and it was fantastic. And it was enjoyable. It became, and then obviously kids came along. Actually, so this was all just before pre-kids, but kids came along, and you know, I said to Emma, like, because she was not in a job that she was enjoying, I said, well, why don't you work from home, selling stuff on eBay? I can go to the post office, much to the disgust of the post office.
You were the absolute darling.
Oh, they hated me. They come and begged me on a Saturday to come early because they knew that I used to be called the queue maker, because they knew by the time I'd left there'd be a blinking queue behind me because I'd have so many parcels to post on Saturday morning. And anyway, so we kind of, you know, that became a job, you know, and the phrase, Richard, the phrase of one man's junk is another man's treasure is absolutely, it's never a truer word spoken when it came to buying stuff out of car boot sales and selling them onto eBay. So that's kind of really where it all started. So selling what you love and enjoy, and we loved science fiction, fantasy books. We love finding them, we love selling them, and then we started selling board games. I don't know if you remember Cold It. I know that Osprey Games have redone the 75th anniversary.
I have got the new anniversary edition, yeah.
But this was pre all of that. So we used to find, first time we found it. Cold It. I remember playing Cold It when I was a bit younger. So I bought it for, I don't know, £5. Got it home, checked the contents, all good. Didn't realise that it was a really rare, sought-after game and would sell for like £40-50, and then finding the old Avalon Hill games, and it all became exciting. It was new, it was fun. We had a niche in terms of what we were doing. So it all really stemmed from that. And then the problem with that is that nothing was ever resellable, and books started to fade out because of the Kindle and that sort of stuff as well. So then we decided to give selling new games rather than secondhand games a go. And not so much on the books, but that's kind of how we kind of started. And very much the difference between us and a competition is I had an IT background, so don't get me wrong, I know how IT works, but don't ask me how to actually open it up. But I can sell it. Is pretty much where I'm kind of coming from. So and because I knew software, we got into e-commerce software, and because of that opened up stock control and listing on Amazon, as well as our own website, which we didn't have, which we were lucky to have, and multiple eBay sites, international sales, and it kind of grew from that. So that's kind of where we first of all became retailers, and from that, going back to your earlier say, I fell in love with board games again. Well, not so much again, but I just didn't quite realize how wonderfully diverse the board game market was, and the games were, and how much they'd come on. It was just a revelation. It was fantastic. So.
Did you find that with the eBay side of things, was that there was a boom period for eBay where there was it seemed to be a case there was very few sellers, or there was very, very few people aware that you could make some decent money on eBay? Because I seem to remember places like going into the charity shops and being able to pick up kind of old games. I remember going into, I think it was a cash converter or generator or something like that, and they had like a couple of Dreamcast games in there that they were selling for $5 because they were like, well, they're old systems, and yet they were going on eBay for things like that as well. Did you find that you eventually ended up having to move away from the car boot stuff because it was changing, or did you just generally move away because you were like, well, let's kind of start going down the new thing and making some money that way?
A bit of both, for certain. I think that for us, the love of books and selling books, it became more competition for certain, and there was less of the gaming side of things that you could have. But I suppose one really good story was a role-playing system called RuneQuest, and we bought a lot of D&D stuff in a box, and right at the end of the box there was a newsletter, typed up newsletter called the Pavic Tales, and they were originals. And I remember Emma saying to her, should we just put these things in a bin? It's like 3 or 4 pages of stick them on for 99p. Well, oh my God. I tell you what, people from all around the world, I mean, they went for selling for about £40-50 each. They were just like, I almost regret not photocopying them, but why didn't I photocopy the thing? But I think
photocopy them, get some tea, pour some tea over them, stick them in the oven for a couple of minutes. And guess what? We found a couple more.
Yeah, I know, shocking. But I would never do such a thing. No, the thing is, you cannot get that back into stock again. All right. No. So getting those sorts of things come few far between. And you go to a car boot sale now, and I tell you it almost rankles because it's so cutthroat. When people pull up in a car, they are literally swarmed, by people. I mean, looking through the stuff before he's even out of the car, it's kind of got sickening, and it all became, you kind of would then spot your competition racing, and you'd be racing to get to a stand before them, and it was just like, and our lives became like a car boot sale every single weekend. We didn't have a life, became so it was.
Has it not become unsustainable then?
Correct.
Do you not get to the
Totally
situation where you're
unsustainable.
sitting there going,
Yeah.
kind of like, what do you want to do this weekend? Or I was planning to do that. Did it get to the point where I guess you must have known a lot of people that were going, and then you could always tell who the newbies were, and that's who you queued up on, because it's like, space number 4's got a Fiat in it. That's usually Darren's spot. Yeah, I know. He's not been here before, has he? And then you're both sidling over.
No, we didn't quite get to the point where we knew who was going to sell, but certainly in terms of going to buy, and there was people like would have a shopping trolley. Oh, I hate it. He's got a shopping trolley, and I really don't like him because he nicks my stock, you know. And it all became, it was not sustainable. It really wasn't. So and then the second baby came along 6 months later, or a year later, after when he could go back to work. And a friend of ours, Amanda, who was also looking to get back into work, and I said to her and to Emma, I said, look, I was still in IT at the time. I still wasn't involved in the business per se, and I said to the two of them, why don't you do this? I think with TurboLister and eBay and new stock, and we looked at his Devium stock range at the time, and why don't we do this? Why don't you work with Emma to do this? And she agreed to do that, and they started off really, really well. So and I just happened to have, about 3 or 4 months later, I actually got made redundant from a well-paid kind of IT job, selling IT stuff, and I had some redundancy and went, I love this. Would you mind me coming in with you guys? And that's we formed that partnership. So and it was called Celtic Goddess Books. There we go.
There you go. Was it? Was it unusual for someone like yourself, like an eBay seller or an online seller, to be approaching the likes of Deviant, going up to them and saying, "Listen, we want to sell the stuff online"? Or were they already aware of what was happening with the market?
No, they were. I think we got in at the right time where there was definitely online sellers, and we had a slightly different approach, and we managed to open an account, and they were still opening up accounts to people who would would just buy. They didn't really at the time have a checkup criteria. You didn't have to have a VAT number and that sort of stuff. Now they're a lot more hotter in terms of being able to show that you are a genuine business. So I think we weren't the first, but we were certainly were one of the starters, I think. But there was a lot of companies such as Games Law and a few others who were incredibly well established, that I got in a few years before, and really established themselves. So, which is why we then, we quickly realised that yes, we were selling board games, but it was actually still a competitive market, and we probably needed to branch out, which is why we then went into to collectibles and other things as well.
So were you kind of going into like the statues and special editions of things that you could get and kind of things like that?
Yeah, we had to. There was 3 of us in the business, and we needed money, so you couldn't survive on board games alone. So we came up with the idea: if you like Game of Thrones, the board games, and would you be interested in buying Game of Thrones, the mug and the T-shirt and the models and that sort of stuff as well? And let's be honest with you, Emma and Amanda were more into baby stuff and toys, so they had an affinity and stuff with those. So we would start selling Brio. So and it's funny how there's a wonderful synergy in the world. Actually, one of the companies that we dealt with, we sold a lot of their products via distributor, was Learning Resources. Now the founder of Learning Resources is now a customer of ours because he's coming over to UK Expo, and because they're the ultimate table gaming company who've just did this new kit kind of tables which look amazing and fantastic, and it's just quite amazing how that world comes around. So I had a bit of a fanboy moment with him actually the other night, but but I wanted him as a customer, like, yes, come over, like, well, not Learning Resources, like, so we had to diverse, we had to, but at the hub, at the heart and soul of what I was about, was and Emma and Amanda really was about board games. That was really the rest of the stuff that we said online was very kind of trying to make some money, but at the heart of what we enjoyed and loved was a board game. So
is it incredibly difficult to make a living by just selling board games at all. Because I am aware of the kind of the marketplace industry of your Amazons and your eBays of this world, and I regularly check on both platforms to see who's selling kind of the current crop, and I'll see yourselves, and you'll see the usual suspects on it again and again and again, and then you'll see the kind of the new sellers. I mean, when you've seen kind of people on Amazon, are you kind of like, I'll give him 6 months and he'll either still be here or he'll be kind of long gone?
It is incredibly difficult, and I don't take a blind bit of notice. I've gone. I don't take any notice, because if you do, you're going to second guess yourself all day long, and you can't, you can't look over your shoulder. We've diversified, we've moved on. We do. You come to UK Expo, and I pretty much guarantee that we're probably one of the, if not the biggest retail stand at UK Expo, and we've done lots of shows, and we've branched out, and we're going to be opening up a board game cafe in Portsmouth with a few other guys, so you have to diversify, and we've got a good reputation, we've got a good brand, and we're pretty reliable, in terms of getting the games out to people. So you can't second guess, you can't look, and it is incredibly difficult. And you just have to have, the thing is, there are still a lot of bedroom sellers out there, and it's a terminology that's not meant to be derogatory. Hey, I started. That's how I started. Okay, we worked from the garage, and that's how I started. So I'm not knocking it, but they're very limited in terms of the amount of stock they can hold and the amount of cash flow that they have. Whereas we, have a large range of games, so we've got good choice. So and people do come back to us. So.
Do you have quite a large collection then yourself? I mean, because obviously you've got access to probably the stock in a potentially a more direct way than a lot of people. Do you find you've ended up with quite a decent collection of board games, or have you got quite a control? Because you are effectively the epitome of a child in a candy shop when it comes to cardboard. I mean, there is nothing from stopping you from going, all right, I'm Jason, Jamie, I'm just taking this one.
Exactly. The game has to really resonate with me, but two factors why I don't. One is because of my very good friend John Bruton, who was one of my very first customers, and turns out he lived literally. Well, if I could walk through my neighbour's next door garden, it would be like a 3-second walk to his house. And when he came to my house to collect a game he bought from me, and I said, I'm thinking of opening a board game club. And he said, well, I already have one, and I've been collecting games for 30 years, and why don't you come round? And I went, oh my God. And I go into his garage, and he's been collecting games for 30 years, and I didn't need to buy any games because he would just buy them all anyway, or most of them. So he has got an amazing range of board games, and he reads all the rules. I don't need to read any rules. He's fantastic. And there are certain games that are in my collection, but you're right. My collection's in the warehouse. I can go and pick a game off the shelf at any time I want to if I really, really, really kind of want to play it. So, but there are certain games in my collection, mostly social gaming. So or gateway games, because I like to introduce people to the hobby, my friends and stuff who maybe not play board games, and it's easy to come down and sit down. Like I've introduced some friends of mine to Catan the other night, and they absolutely loved it. They loved it. So So no, I don't have a massive personal range. I have some games, but I don't have a massive personal collection, so don't need to.
Is that the same with Kickstarter then? I mean, are you somebody that partakes kind of like in a Kickstarter? Have you become more involved? Have you become more involved in that over the couple of years?
I pledged Rising Sun, but I didn't get it. I didn't fill my pledge manager in properly.
What was that? Sorry,
Fulfilment.
You could have broke.
I didn't get my game. Oh, gutted. They absolutely ripped the hell out of me in the office. Absolutely. Danny and Sam, who were in the office, so they got their pledge managers, and they said, but nice. And then Danny looked up with the pledge manager and went, your name's not on the pledge manager. What do you mean? Yes, of course it is. Did you fill your pledge manager in? Yes, of course I did. It was on my Kickstarter. What about the email from? Check the email. Oh, and it must have come in. I think it came in November time or something where I was obviously completely distracted and didn't see the pledge manager. And I was on the phone to Skype to Simon, who are obviously a customer of mine. And they said, "We can't. No, you didn't fill your pledge manager in." Oh, damn! It's in America. So yeah. So my pledge, the head of European field, did not fill. But actually, bizarrely, and I was saying this earlier on to somebody, it turned out to be a good thing because people ring us up and going like, "Well, where's my pledge? Where's my pledge?" And I said, "You check it out." So you're not on there. And it's like, and actually, and I'll name and shame him, but Matt of Battlefield Miniatures did exactly the same. And he rang me up. He said, "Nigel, where's my Rising Sun? When you sending me Rising Sun?" I said, "Matt, you're not on the pledge list." "Yes, I am. I filled it in." I said, "I am." I said, "Have you done the same as me, Matt? Have you not filled your pledge manager in?" What pledge manager? "Yeah, I've on my Kickstarter." I said, "Oh no, did you get this email?" And lo and behold, we had quite a few people ringing us to, demanding where the Kickstarters were and saying, and actually we had a canned response going, "Did you fill that pledge manager in?" And you won't believe the amount of people that didn't, me included. So actually, I think it was a godsend. I think it was a real reason I didn't do that. It helped me with my customers, or my Simon's customers, I should say. So, yeah.
So it was a time for you to share. It was a time for you to grow, and ultimately, it was a time for you to become just a better Nigel, basically. I take it.
No, not really. No.
I take it. Everyone else in the office have got their copy, and do they gloat? Do they just say, "I'm just going to leave this here"?
Oh, Danny loved it.
I'm off for lunch.
Let's do a box opening, Nige. Oh, look, I kept it for you. Let's do a box opening. They made me do the box opening with them, bless them. And I've got to say, I love the mat. I love the play mat. It's amazing. So, but yeah, I know, terrible, isn't it? But yeah. I know.
So how'd you go from? I was going to say, how'd you go from selling games to not filling in pledge managers and filling in the gap in the middle where you're actually sending out Kickstarters to people? I mean, you're diversifying.
Pure fluke, Richard. Honestly, I mean, sometimes you've got to be in the right place at the right time. And one of my customers from Portsmouth, and it was a big customer of mine. He spent a lot of money. He's emigrated now, bizarrely, but you can't get away because I saw his name on a Kickstarter pledge that we shipped out to Australia the other day. Anyway, he recommended Dr. Finn. I don't know who Dr. Finn, Steve Finn, who designed Biblios. And,
yeah.
And he was a customer. He said, "Why don't you ask Nigel?" He said, because he asked Julian if he had any knew any companies. So ask Nigel. I'll buy my games. They're good people. And why do you ask them? So Steve reached out to me, and I reached back and said, like, reaching out. What a name. Yeah. So anyway, terminology. I love the terminology.
You're so American.
But the Americans love it, and most of my customers are American. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's a brilliant phrase. It just relaxes people. You know, when people now say to me, and I hate cold callers, I used to do it all the time. Like, I'm just reaching out. "Oh, bless you. Oh, yeah. All right, then. I'll listen."
I'm struggling a bit.
It worked. So anyway, Steve reached out, and we got back, and I said, "Well, yeah, well, I'm shipping games all over the world anyway, and I ship out hundreds of games a day or whatever, or 100 parcels a day. So, yeah, why not? I'll give it a go." So he sent his products over, and we shipped. That's only 50, 60 parcels, something like that, and it worked. And then a couple of months later, he said, "I've got another game. Would you do that for me?" And I went, "Yeah, of course we will." I thought, "Oh, repeat business. That's good." And then his good old friend, he recommended Eduardo from Pencil First. And Eduardo then came along and said, I see you're doing Steve's games. Could you do mine for me?" "Yeah, of course I can. Not a problem." And then
Eduardo was amazing.
Yeah,
I have a lot of time for Eduardo. He's been on the show before. I think he's been on the show a couple of times, and his he's got a couple of his games are going to be. They're probably coming our way through you anyway.
There will be. Mid-March, I believe. So yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it just went from there, and we started reaching out to a few people. But then, you've got to sometimes roll the dice. I thought, "Oh, this has got potentially." Sorry, double barrel. But anyway, and I reached out to Isdevium because I knew the MD down Isdevium, and I reached out to the sales director at the time. He's now MD. But anyway, I reached out to Steve and said, like, "Yeah, I've got an idea," because one of the things that a lot of these, we started to get a lot of smaller publishers, and what they didn't have was a distribution deal, potential distribution. At the end of it, so the whole solution is that we suddenly started doing. We needed freight from China, and we knew Devium did that. We needed potential distribution. We knew Devium did that. We know Devium didn't do B2C, so they didn't want to do the B2C side of it. They were all purely B2B. And in fairness to Devium, well, now obviously Asmodee, I'll go in the past tense because it was Devium at the time, but they. And I've got a lot of respect for them because unlike other distributors who would sell direct to the end users at shows, they never did, and they never have, and I don't think they ever will. And well, I'm pretty sure they won't in terms of selling at shows and selling direct to the public within the UK. And I had a lot of respect for that. So I knew there weren't going to be competition either. So I kind of reached out and said to them, would they be interested in doing a partnership because we could introduce new publishers to them. And never in my wildest dreams that I would say that they would. I didn't want them to recommend people to us. That wasn't why I did it. I was I was purely looking at the other way, being able to introduce and do a value add. And anyway, and it just so happens that they've been to Gen Con, this was a couple of years ago, and they were constantly being asked by their publishers to help do their European fulfillment. And of course, they didn't have a solution for that because they weren't geared up to do B2C. So, and literally, and it's just timing. That Sunday, I sent an email to Steve. I had a bit of a eureka moment and sent an email to them. And literally on the plane coming over, a day later, they said, well, the first thing we're going to do is try and sort out a partnership to help people with their EU fulfillment because we're going to lose potential publishers to other distributors. Can't do it.
And lo and behold, here comes Super Nigel.
Literally, Steve got back to his desk on I think it was on the Tuesday because of the bank holiday, and bang, there's an email, and like, wow, that was good timing, and they knew us and they trusted us and they know we're a good customer. We spent a lot of money with them, but equally that I thought, well, obviously had a good reputation of being a pretty decent person. So that kind of went from there, and they kind of they started recommending people to us, which was great for us, and obviously they recommended Cool Mini to us. So and Cool Mini saw us at the UK Expo show, liked our stand, looked like we did, and then they tested us out, and we did a fantastic job for them. So and in fact they were. I mean, I remember they were trying another American fulfillment company out who totally messed it up for them. And whereas in the EU, we did a brilliant job. And it's just kind of gone from there. But I couldn't do it myself. I brought a guy, one of my customers, Andy, who had literally spent a lot of money since getting back into the hobby with me, and I knew he'd agreed to, in the meantime, to invest in the coffee shop idea in Portsmouth, which he's a part shareholder there. And I said to him, look, mate, would you mind taking maybe before this cafe opens, and it still hasn't 2 years later, but we're nearly there. Slipped that one in. But I said, come in for 6 months. Come in for 6 months. And he said, what do I want to do? He said, I've never sold. I said, well, just reach out by email. You don't have to speak to him. Just reach out by email to all these Kickstarter people. He said, well, why me? I said, because you've got a passion for gaming. You understand you and people naturally like you. And so, all right, give it a go. So, now he's a director in the business and the fulfillment business is booming. And, he's been part of that success. So we've kind of you've got good people around you as well. So it's kind of gone from there. But most importantly of all was Andy's attitude in terms of gaining a good reputation and winning people like James Matthews and Jamie Stegmaier and people like that, and doing a good job for these people. So it's kind of gone from there, really.
Well, I mean, what's it like when you get somebody? I mean, do you still get a little bit of starstruck? When somebody, because I've had Jamie on the show. I've had Jamie on the show twice now, and both times I'm kind of like going, right, okay, I'm just going upstairs to speak to Jamie Stegmaier on a podcast. Yeah. Okay, here we go. And it's kind of like that Wayne's World, I'm hanging around with Alice Cooper and everything's cool. I'm not going to throw up kind of thing. But did you, when you were first starting this, did you think, well, I'm going to have, Jamie Stegmaier, Simon are all going to be, kind of on the books. And you've had quite a few other well known, really big, successful kind of Kickstarters kind of coming on board as well. I mean, are you surprised? Are you pleasantly surprised about how successful it's become? How much of part of the business it's become, or part of the kind of the core Gamesquest business it's become?
Well, yeah, immensely proud of what we've achieved in the last 2 years, and the growth has been huge, and we are suffering some headaches because of that. But I've got good people around us, and who care passionately about what they do, and obviously about what they handle on a day in day basis, and about the games that they handle, because they I don't think there's anybody, not only my retail team or anybody, that is actually not a hobbyist who's not part of the hobby. Nobody in the team, they all love the hobby, and you have to. And I suppose, yes, a little bit starstruck in the sense of the people have come on board, but our success is basically that we are very specialist. Okay, we are, there's other companies out there who are generic fulfillment companies that don't really understand how to pack a board game. And listen, I'm not, you've probably got some listeners out there go, oh, well, mine came damaged, but a majority of the people that don't, majority of people that have damage rate is so low, it's unbelievable. So, but yeah.
Well, I am currently thinking there's potentially a couple of chicken-themed restaurants that could be doing with a new delivery partner. I've read that today.
Yes,
and apparently they got somebody else in to save money.
Right. Yeah.
They got somebody else in to save money, and then what's happened is the guys have went, no, you're not getting any chicken today, I'm afraid.
I know. Oh, I can't, because we use DHL, and they're great, so, but yeah, so it's I suppose for us, it's we've done a lot over the last few months, and there's been a couple of projects that have struggled with that. But overall, we think we've done a really good job. I mean, Jamie Stegmaier, he had tried, before he stopped doing Kickstarter, he had tried every single fulfillment company, pretty much. Well, not every single one, but a lot of ones he tested out and tried the systems and stuff. And we came out top. He recommended us as the number one fulfillment company in Europe. So there has to be something. We would have to do something right. To kind of get. Minion Games have tried many, and you know what James Matthews is like. He does not suffer fools gladly. He took a bit of convincing.
That's why he's not been on the show. Because he's probably listened and went.
No, he's all right with Scottish fools. It's just he'd be fine. So absolutely fine. So, but he doesn't suffer fools gladly, and we worked hard to win him, and now he's on his 6th or 7th project with us. So yeah, we do get a lot of repeat business. And I suppose for me now, it's not so much the personalities, but the sort of game that is that comes out there. So, for example, I'm a massive Princess Bride fan. Okay, I'm one of the world's worst Princess Bride fans you possibly imagine. I quote it all the time. That drive people mad. Like every night I say to people, good night. Still might kill you in the morning. So I can't resist. And we've just won the Princess Bride role playing game. From Toy Vault. So they've agreed to use us for the fulfillment on that. And it was I tell you, I said to the guy, I said that I'm holding the phone in my left hand. So anyway, I can hold my phone in the left hand, and I just couldn't stop myself, Just and another big one is there's one on Kickstarter at the minute, so go and check it out because it's fantastic, called The Reckoners, which is by an author called Brandon Sanderson. And I said to Brett at Double Games, as soon as I found out it was what he was doing, and he reached out to us, you are not going anywhere else. You would know you would not go anywhere else. I demand you use us because I love the game, and I think that's how passion and enthusiasm comes across. It's just like, oh my God, The Reckoners, one of my favourite books and favourite authors. So I get very passionate, excited about the sort of some of the games that we do as well. So, but yeah,
I don't know. These words you keep using, I don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah.
People are going to get that. People are going to be going, why is he trying to do a Welsh accent?
Was it a Welsh Spanish accent? That was
Welsh
odd, really. I don't know what it was. But, yeah.
I'm not left-handed.
No, neither am I.
Boyo. So here's there's obviously the the grumpiest people are the loudest people.
Yes.
You can't help that.
No.
And do you ever go on to Kickstarter campaigns, or and see if there's been kind of, say, a road bump in terms of the fulfillment, and you see people kind of cursing your name kind of left, right and centre, or just generally not saying very nice things about you? Do you have, I mean, obviously you can't kind of jump in, I guess, and say, actually, I think you'll find that, it wasn't our issue, it was something else. I mean, do you have to kind of distance yourself from that? Do you, is it a case that you're kind of in that horrible situation where you don't really have a direct, you can't go back and comment on what's kind of happening in the campaign in terms of the fulfillment, can you? Or is that something that you do through choice, that you just generally try and keep your distance with these things?
It is difficult. I have to laugh when I first started eBay, and I would take every single feedback personally. Okay, if there's a negative feedback, I would jump on that person and try and work out why, and it became, and I would eat myself up, and it would be the same. It would be the same with you. But what people have got to remember is that, look, I'm not saying that. That we are perfect. We're far from it. In fact, we recently made a couple of mistakes, but that's sheer volume of business that we've had over the last 6 weeks. But a majority of the time, there's two sides to every story. Okay, and fulfillment, it is not as easy. A lot of people say, "Oh, you've had that import now for 2 weeks. Why hasn't it?" I have a story when Simon first came, and I had a Geordie, and I probably won't do a Geordie accent, but he came on board and said, I've been tracking your shipment, and it's been import now for 2 weeks, and you've done nothing. And I must admit, at that point, I'd kind of had enough, and I just let him have it. I just went into absolute detail. Do you know they have 8 containers, all loose loaded? We have to pull them off. We have to palletize them off. Blah 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 blah. And do you know that I don't know amongst all of those 14,000 parcels where's yours in, sir? And in fairness to him, he turned around and he said, "I'll best keep my trap shut next time." My best Geordie accent.
What was that? Is that you? That was Yorkshire.
I don't know. He was like, "Yeah, I told you I didn't try. I don't know why I tried it.
Channel and
lulled me
Michael
into a false
Parkins.
sense of security." Anyway, and in fairness, but we can't, because ultimately what people have got to realise is that they are not our customer. If they backed a whatever project they're backed, they are the publisher's customers, not ours. The customer is the publisher. So we would be completely out of order to jump on into that. And it hurts sometimes, because we know that the error or the inability of the publisher, or not even, it's not directly our fault. And that happens a lot. And, we've got, I can't go into detail, but we've got one particular project at the moment that's sat in our warehouse and we can't move it. And people are sat there going like, "What if I paid you for the postage? It's not our product. We can't do that. It's not our product." And 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 you're not our customer, and we are trying to do our best. But ultimately, But recently there was a lot of Facebook chat on the board game, which I am part of that community, and I actually just said, "Look, guys, if you ever have a problem, don't air it here, because it gets toxic. Anybody's willing to reach out on Facebook to me and email me personally." And bizarrely, on a few occasions where I've actually explained one-to-one what's gone on, they've actually turned around on the last 2 of the 3 occasions and actually removed what they originally wrote. So as I say, it's not easy, but no, we can't do it. We really can't do it, and we try to stay aloof, because a lot of noise comes from. I tell you what it is. If you look on our website, I'm not plugging this, but we're FIFO now. We've just won the FIFO Trusted Merchant Award, which is actually very hard to get. You have to have more than 98% feedback to get that. Okay?
What website's that, Nigel?
It's gamesquest.co.uk. Marvellous.
.co.uk.
Is that a shameless plug? No. Anyway, so you've got to have a look at that. Now, the problem with fulfillment is that it's very hard. We talked about this, to actually elicit positive response, because when you get your parcel in the post and it's come from a third-party fulfillment company, your first thought is, "Well, they've done their job. Thank you." That's it. Do you know what I mean? You don't feel a groundswell of going, "I'm going to go online and tell them how wonderful and great they are," because in actual fact, we've simply done our job. It's been packaged well, it's arrived in the post, and it's there. And a lot of people will throw negativity around because their package, there's been a problem with their package, or there's been an issue, or I mean, we're inundated with customer services right now. We're about a week behind. It's just so busy, but so people have that negative spin, and a lot of noise comes from a very, very small majority of people. So we're trying to work out, well, how do we elicit the 150,000 parcels that we did, out of which less than 0.5% was actually damaged. How do we elicit all that positive response? And it's very difficult in the fulfillment market to do that. So,
and what was I going to say? In terms of you preparing, say I rock up to you. Say I am, for instance, say I've run a campaign and I've gone from say 200 parcels, and my Kickstarter for whatever reason has just stormed it, and I've ended up, I've got 3,000 boxes, kind of coming your way instead. I mean, are you able to take? I take it you must know. You must have. Do you have like a 6-month kind of almost warning? I take it from the manufacturer, because I take it what happens is, the guys, they get the Kickstarter money, and the first thing they do is they pay the manufacturer, but they have to pay you some money to hold things open. So are you generally quite prepared, or do you ever kind of get nasty surprises? Do you get folk kind of like rocking up and saying, "Oh, here's my stuff"?
Oh, you would not believe it. I mean, I've dealt with an American company that we've done a partner with, and they say, "Oh, if it's scheduled in, if it misses a schedule, tough luck." Well, I don't know how they do that. I mean, unless people have use our freight, services. So we've now partnered with a freight company to get stuff in from China. And you know what? The reason we do that is very much to have visibility and control, whatever. Because honestly, I could tell you stories of people who a lot of the publishers are semi-professional people and don't really kind of get it. And we've had phone calls in the past where they're going like, I spoke to you about 6 months ago. Yeah, I remember. I saw the email, got your quote. Yeah. Well, I'd like you to do my fulfillment for me. Brilliant. Okay, when's that coming in? It's actually in the port now. Would you help me get it out of the port? Will you? What do you mean it's in port? Where is it? Yeah. It'll be there in a day or two. Well, and that has happened on numerous occasions where it's kind of pulled out. And I think our problem is that sometimes we don't like to say no to people, because we are enthusiastic, but we don't like to say no, and we don't like giving people bad news. We say, yeah, well, of course we'll try and do it for you. Of course we'll try and do it for you. And I think we've learned the hard way to maybe not to over promise and under deliver, but we have to flip it the other way. But yeah, it happens all the time, and we've learned a huge amount. But the publishers now, we try to message like port to door, because if we can have more visibility control, then we can schedule it in. But logistics, I was talking to a partner of ours and saying like they killed themselves laughing, because I said, you know what, logistics is a bloody, excuse my phrase, shitty business, because it can go wrong at any time. It can go wrong, and all the best will in the world, all the efforts you can make, you're human beings, but more importantly, you're not in control all the time. You're at the mercy of port authorities. All right, so I'll give you a really good example. A very good friend of mine who successfully escaped the Dark Castle. I know you won't mind me talking about him, but Tom, he's helped me at shows. He used to work for Devium. I know him well, and we've helped him from the moment the Kickstarter went live to when he went to manufacture. We've imported his stuff for him. Now we've been doing this. We've been doing freight now for 2 years. Okay, not once has any of our containers been subject to a custom inspection. Not once. Yeah. Okay. So now here's a slight delay, but we're hoping to get it in for Christmas. So you want to do some signings and stuff. What happens? It lands on, I think it was like the 19th of December. What happens? So I made the phone call to Tom. What happens? It's been impounded for customs inspection. What? And this is a friend of mine who worked very closely with, who's a good guy, and I wasn't in control of that. Luckily, it did actually get it got into our warehouse between Christmas and New Year, and he was able to get the other guys down and do some signage for it. But you just don't know, You just, who knows? I mean, you could get pirates,
What is that? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, you're saying kind of customs inspection. Does that mean that somebody that needs to physically go through the kind of through the packets and just check that everything is as it says, or Are they checking for duty and stuff like that, checking the value of the goods and things like that
Yeah,
too?
yeah, they'll check. They'll check. I think mostly they'll check the contents for obviously things like drugs and that sort of stuff, but also
Yeah.
that has the right certification, the right EU markings. That it's got the right certification for the right age group. That sort of stuff as well. Make sure this legitimate product. So yeah, so doesn't happen often, but yeah, they do. They do all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's a complex, it's a dark art. There's no two ways about that. It's not, and you're not in control either half the time. And you're right, people just literally show out the blue and stuff like, oh, it's a week out of port. So it is very difficult to schedule in. And when you try to do, and Simon is a perfect example of that, where they actually came in a bit early, and some of the other projects that we've tried desperately to get out beforehand arrive late. And and bang, you have that clash, and then becomes incredibly tough. So,
I mean, I take it you just have to kind of deal with what you've got at the time as best that you can, and that sometimes you'll get like, because I know that like Rising Sun, Green Horde, and
yes,
everything like that seems to have kind of landed
same time,
kind of all,
projects.
all at once.
Yeah.
Have you just like that? Oh my goodness!
So to give you a good idea about how big this was, in our first year we did about 28,000 parcels in the whole year. Obviously most of that in the second half of the year as we were kind of growing and projects started to arrive. So in 1 month in January, we beat that. The Simon itself was over 26,000 parcels, and then plus all the other projects that we did was about 40,000 parcels. So in the first month of this year, we did more than we did in the whole of the first year that we did business, and that just shows you how it's really hard. We wish we could schedule, but it's so hard because what you do is say, well, we're not like some of the other companies that I could name where, yeah, sorry, it's arrived 3 days late. You now have to wait another 4 weeks before we can fit you into another schedule. Mm-hmm. How much more would that annoy people? So I don't know. I wish I knew the answers, but I don't half the time. But I do.
I mean, is there anything, if a guy is sitting there and he's saying, right, okay, I am going through looking at my Kickstarter fulfillment, and they're mucking around, they're looking at, say, Amazon FBA, I'll stick it in Amazon FBA and they'll fulfill it, or they're kind of toying about. How can they make, for you, acting as a fulfillment partner, what are the key things that they can do to make things kind of run as smoothly as possible for yourself? Who would you say is who's a really nice, decent guy who's just like, yeah, that's fine. You're 200 guys, 200 packets, they're out there, everything's been fine. What advice would you give to somebody who is, thinking about kind of approaching you?
Well, let's imagine they've successfully done the Kickstarter, but it's obviously making sure that a lot of people will potentially go to whatever the manufacturer. Make sure you've got a manufacturer with a good reputation. If it's too cheap, you'll have problems. I'm sat here and I've worked with companies that they thought they get a bargain, but honestly, go to the likes of Watch Games and Panda and Long Pack and people like that, and benchmark these people, because they've been in the industry for a while now, and they do a pretty good job. Though some they obviously can't get it right all the time, but at least get a benchmark price on those guys, because they're about right, and making sure that you constantly communicate and constantly check everything that's coming in from your from your manufacturer. Get that right, and make sure you keep on top of it to get your manufacturing right as well. And once you've got that, then you can basically, you're in control. You have to be in control all the time. And whatever filter company you use, if they have a freight option and it's about the same price, you use it, because you give them, like us, we get, we don't make a huge margin at all on freight, but it's all about that control and visibility, and making sure that you have your backer data. The amount of problems we've just discovered, a problem with one of our campaigns that we run at the minute, that they were complaining that we've double shipped stuff, when it turns out that they duplicated their order numbers on their backer data. There's only so much validation we can do, and we try our best, but ultimately it's the responsibility of that data that's come across from the publisher, and yeah, so having control and at all times, and communication is absolutely vital. Vital. We've had a situation where we've had nothing from a publisher, and we've had a bill through from a freight company that didn't use us, but we had a bill through, and then they started saying your storage rates are going up. We didn't even know who it was. Honestly, we did not have a clue who the publisher was. They'd given our details. We didn't have a clue, and then literally about 7 days later, we had an email saying, "Oh, my stuff's in the port, and it's not come out." And we said, well, we didn't know who it was. We didn't even know it was you. Literally, and this is how much we give a damn, right? The storage company, that they said, well, it's been our port now, and basically we're going to charge you £1,500. And we said, well, look, our customer's not going to pay that. And we fought. It wasn't even our responsibility, but we fought for this small publisher, and we got the bill down to 500 quid. So communication is absolutely, whether it's with a manufacturer, freight company, with us, whoever you're dealing with, communication is vital. That is the most critical thing from that manufacturing point, and whoever fulfillment company you use, communication is absolutely critical. So,
And what's next for you guys then? Are you? The guy that started off by doing kind of play by mail, the guy that went on to sell on eBay, the guy that's been retailing kind of board games kind of online. You're turning into almost like a different kind of beast altogether. It's like a full kind of logistics firm kind of thing. Are you? Is this something that you've had to kind of go, I guess, accept, grow comfortable with, that, at the end of the day, you're in charge of shifting kind of several tons of cardboard from one side of the world to the other? Do you miss the days of maybe the eBay days of packing stuff up and sending it off? Are you quite kind of comfortable and kind of happy and contented about where you are as a business now?
That is a great question. I suppose everybody. I look back and for the month we've had, and we've had to do some firefighting, and it's been an amazing growth. I tell you what, when I first moved into the business, I was a IT salesman. I was hungry. I thought, I could make my millions. The dream. I could make my millions, and that soon became apparent as I learned mistakes in terms of business. And hindsight is a wonderful thing. But I now employ. At Christmas time, I think I had about 40 to 50 people, but on a regular basis now, I employ about 26 to 30 people, and I also employ my brother, his wife, my nephew, and some people who have become my friends, and I'm very proud of that. And and I've changed the way I think about it. I'm living the dream because I sell, and I'm involved in stuff that I love to do on a day-to-day basis, that I have a massive passion and enthusiasm for. And whether that's shipping other people's games or stuff that I sell, I care about it. And I'm building up a company that is giving employment to people who share that ambition and that enthusiasm. And for me, that's what I want to go, and I want to keep it growing. And we go to shows, and I love talking to people, and I love evangelizing my board games. And as I said, we're going to be opening up a board game cafe in Portsmouth, and again, converting people to that hobby, to share that passion. So whatever vehicle I can use to get that across is what I enjoy. So look, I want to retire at some point, and if I can sell the business and retire very nicely, thank you very much. I'll have achieved something. But I want to keep growing, and we're learning all the time, and there are some great stuff coming out of Gamesquest, which will help us and our publishers a massive amount. But I want to keep growing. I want to become known as people that will turn to first, and has a really great reputation and brand, and grow something that's successful. So for me, it's I'm going to keep growing the way I'm growing. I'm going to keep evangelizing. I'm going to keep pushing out the hobby. If you look at our website, www.gamesquest.co.uk, and look at our blog, for example, I don't, I give away free games to my bloggers all the time. I don't make a fortune out of it. It doesn't generate me a huge amount of revenue, but we're talking about game clubs, we're promoting board games. And I say to this to bricks and mortar stores, and I think a lot of them do an amazing job, and they have a very dim view of online retailers. And I'll defend us and people like Games Law, who care passionately about a hobby just as much as a bricks and mortar store, and we evangelize about the hobby all the time. We do Insomnia, which is a big, massive gaming festival, and we run the tabletop zone out there, and that's bringing more people into the hobby all the time. So that's that's what we're trying to build, and so yeah.
I have a question then, a last question,
Go on.
as you would say, just to sum up before we move on and let you go.
Oh, go on, Michael. Go on.
This is a scenario, okay? You have been visiting a warehouse in China, and you've got 2 minutes before the car is going to take you to the airport so you can fly away. The warehouse itself has been used as a depository for every single board game under the sun. So you have got first editions, you've got second editions, you've got sealed games, you've got all the expansions in the world. Unfortunately, due to some previous purchases, you only have enough space in your suitcase for 3 games. In this warehouse in front of you, which is essentially the entire history of the cardboard nation, what 3 games would you take from you to put in your suitcase before you get in the car, before you go to the airport, before you fly back home?
It changes, but I'll pretend I don't have the games, and so there'll be special editions I would want to take out with me. So the first and foremost with it is one of my all-time favorite games, which would be Codenames. You didn't expecting that, were you?
Really?
Oh God, it's sheer Codenames. I'll harken back right to what I just said a minute ago when I said about evangelizing to the hobby. And
I suppose, yeah.
What I love about Codenames, and I have got so many people into the hobby because of Codenames, is absolutely unbelievable. Because people who were scared to go, oh, board games, oh, I don't know, and you mean Monopoly? I don't like all this hobbyist sort of games. It's frightening. No, look, play Codenames. Right, and I've got some very good friends who, before they met us, would not have tried a board game, but because we played Codenames with them, it was just it was sheer joy of actually opening up their eyes. And now they've played the likes of Catan and Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride, and because they're simply up there. And I think it is probably the most simplistic genius of a game that's been invented today. I think it's just, I love, and I've played it, and me and my wife play another couple with it, and we just won the Codenames World Championships by 11 games to 9, right, at the end of it. Best of 21. We've got a little trophy, right, and I love it because of the social interaction you kind of get and stuff as well, and you can play it totally sober, half drunk, it's great. And I think that it's a brilliant game. So brilliant game. So
what's your second game then?
Second game, and the boys, if I don't say it, will probably call me a hypocrite. So I'm going to say it. And one of my all-time favorite games is Quartermaster General by Googling Games.
Really? Oh my, yes. Okay. Eyes light up with that, because that is a game that stunningly took me by surprise. Yes. No, we agree, we applaud.
Yeah,
we like that. We like that. We're actually standing up and applauding at the same time.
Thank you very much. I evangelise it about all the time, and I make people play it, and I think that's.
What did you think of the 1914 version?
It's slightly better in some ways and not so good in other ways. I think that it's more attritional. I think you kind of grind it down, but I think the attritional cards are better, and it gives you more different ways of actually winning it. But the amount of times I played it, we've actually run out of cards, by turn 15. is quite amazing. And but I love the original, particularly with the Air Marshal expansion as well. So which adds a bit to it. But what I love, it's just every game is different. I mean, but you've got to play two games. You've got to play two games because one got to play the Allies because it's really hard to win as the Axis, more so than the Allies. But yeah, I absolutely love that. So from that side of things as well. So but yeah.
And your third and final game, sir. You have to hurry because the chauffeur is looking a bit pensive because he's worried you're going to actually miss your flight.
Well, it's Starfarers of Catan. Everybody would go, well, okay, so everybody knows Catan, all right, but very few people actually played the version by Cosmos called the Starfarers of Catan. Now, if you love Catan, it's not in print now, and they should have made this version the Star Trek version of it. But it is just, I mean, if you like Catan, look, the social aspect of it is fantastic. But the Starfarers of Catan is literally one of my all-time favourite games. And it's just like, it has spaceships. You roll the spaceship, got little balls in there to sign your movement. You fight pirates, people read out of books. There's lots of innuendos you could say about having rings and plugs and your missiles, and it's just fun. It's just brilliant. And they ruined Catan by not making Star Trek Catan the Starfarers of Catan. So because it's just absolutely, it's fantastic. Have you played it? Have you ever played Starfarers of Catan?
No, I haven't.
Play it, Rich. Play it. You got spaceship and everything, and then literally you then go. Do you want to go and encounter if you meet pirates? And somebody's got to read from a book, and then you got to battle somebody else to your left and stuff. And it's just you have a spaceship, and it's fantastic. It's great. I'm making the noise now. I'm making the shaking the spaceship with, and you can upgrade your ships and find aliens, and it's just brilliant. I absolutely love Starfarers of Catan. One of my favourite games. It's absolutely brilliant. So those would be and each kind of different because it's either social gaming or light gaming or a little bit more kind of heavy gaming. But I just love. Don't you love the diversity, Richard? Don't you love the sheer diversity of board gaming and you could play a very simple starter game, very light game to conquer the galaxy, to play in just the sheer diversity you could have in a weekend of the different sorts of games you could play.
Well, I know that like say on Sunday my son had a play date, as in another friend from school come round, and of course I took out King Domino.
Yeah, great game.
And didn't get it. 5 minutes, very first minute. Oh, what's this? Wood, tiles, cardboard. Don't know what this is. Oh, Little Wooden King. What's this all about? 5 minutes. So we put the numbers in order. Oh, I meant to put my piece here, and then I select it. And how do I put this down? 15 minutes in, he's like saying, no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to block you off. I mean, the change. And then after that, we played Tumble Tree, which is you're building up a little tree. And just that. But then I played Dinosaur Island, which completely different. Dice Forge, The Godfather. Yeah. I mean, it's just catacombs. I mean, I've got GKR heavy hitters waiting to kind of go to the, get to the table. There's, it's just you're right. It's just the fact is that I can sit there for an hour, for 2 hours, for 3 hours, for 8 hours, for 15 minutes, for 20 minutes, and I can be somewhere else for a little bit, and it's absolutely glorious.
My daughter, she's 13 years old, and I mean, she likes a bit of card games. She played the games. Anyway, I brought home Hogwarts Battles, Harry Potter, the deck building game. Oh my God, she's never played deck building. She can't get enough of it, and it's one of the best introductory deck building games I've ever played to get people into deck building games, and thematically amazing. But my 13-year-old daughter suddenly has a passion for a board game. Oh, fantastic. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely fantastic. So but the sheer diversity of this hobby is
well, for us it was Mice and Mystics and Pandemic.
Great games. Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very, very much for coming on.
My pleasure. This has absolutely been a pleasure. Sorry, I shouldn't call you Richard. Michael, my hero.
As we say, for those out there that would like to know where they can find Nigel online, do you want to tell us where they can find you?
I might have mentioned it before, but www.gamesquest.co.uk.
And that's GAMESQUEST.
That's correct.
.co.uk just in case. And we'll put a link in the show notes because, we always put links in the show notes so that we have notes to show.
Great idea.
I'd love to know if anybody actually clicks on them. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, and thank you very much for everybody who has been listening and downloading and sharing and things like that. We appreciate every single person that does listen, even you. But if you want to find us online, you can go to Twitter and go to We're Not Wizards and you'll find us there. You'll find us on Facebook, We're Not Wizards. You will find us on YouTube. If you go to youtube.com/c/We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast, you will find us there. And we're only there because our fantastic podcast hosts, Podbean, automatically upload our podcast to YouTube, which is really, really nice. We still haven't heard anything back from Spotify. Unfortunately, they are it still says it's under review. Not very hopeful, being honest, ladies and gentlemen.
They should be blogified.
They should be. If you like what you've listened to us, if you haven't listened to us before and you're catching up with us, remember you can subscribe to us across things like Spreaker and Stitcher and Podknife and all these wonderful podcatchy places. If you really like us, then please jump onto Apple Podcasts and drop us a subscription there, because apparently that works wonders for my lower back. If you'd like to love us even a little bit more, please consider giving us a rating or a review. And as we say as normal, it's 2018, but the jokes are still the same. If you like us a lot, remember, don't give us 10 stars, because that'll make us big-headed. And don't give us 1, because I am an ugly crier. Kind of give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average, and we're a little bit average.
I'm not having that. You are far from average. That is not, no, ladies and gentlemen, you do not give him a 5, okay? You give this man at least a 9, okay? At least a 9.
Nigel, iTunes only goes up as high as 5.
Oh, really? Well,
that's a joke.
iTunes, what's that? Anyway, no, people, give this guy a 9 at least. 9.5.
Thank you very much. And there's only two. There's only 2 more things to do. It's only 2 more things to do tonight. Dream of a 5. I used to be a 6 on a good day. Now I'm just a 5. Now I dream of being a 5. Oh my goodness. There's only a couple more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards.
Sorcerers and necromancers.
Are we wizards? Stop it. I can edit this all wrong again.
It's the 5th time we've done this.
It is, and it just keeps getting funnier. Well, I know I'm crying with laughter. And the other thing is to say goodbye. Listen, it's a goodbye from the fantastic, the magnificent, the amazing Mr. Nigel Matthews from Gamesquest.co.uk. Again, thank you very much, sir,
for coming on. My pleasure. Thanks, it's been great fun, and thanks all for listening. Listen more.
That's not what you said last time. You said something funnier. But anyway, and
I tried to do Ronnie Corbett, and it's good night from him.
And it's a good night from me. And it's a goodbye. Say goodbye, Nigel.
Goodbye.
Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and next time you're looking for a board quest, maybe check out Gamesquest. And we shall speak to you next time.
Pan.
Until then.
Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.